What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be another interesting day as there's more gamma exposure for the markets, which could help us push even more. I'm going to talk about what President Trump said that's super important for the stock market, why he's helping the market pump even more, and what you should be watching for the economic calendar and such for the markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, the market is pumping very, very nicely, exactly as we predicted. My prediction was that SPY was forming a bullish wedge, and we're going to be looking for some temporary upside as we're trying to make higher lows on the charts. So the same thing happened to the triple Q. The same thing's happening to Tesla, and the whole market is running very, very well. So, this also resembles like a cup and handle for SPY. So we're looking quite strong here. If we could break and hold 575 next, I think we easily push for 580. We'll see how it reacts to that resistance, but overall, it's still looking quite strong. But the question is, why is the market doing this? Why is the market pumping? What's happening? Let's talk about the news first, and I'll break down these charts. But as a reminder, it's not just SPY and the QQQ. The whole market is pumping. Nvda is up 3.15%. Google's up 2%. Meta's up 3.79%. Amazon's up. Tesla's up almost 12%. Finance is in the green. Consumer durables, and the list goes on. The large majority of stocks are in the green. What's going on right here? There's one big piece of news that's coming out that President Trump's plan for reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd is expected to be more targeted and more narrow compared to before. So that's some very, very big news. What this means is before, right, people were not sure about what the April 2nd tariffs would look like. Now it's looking like reports are suggesting that Trump is no longer expected to impose sector-specific tariffs. His tariffs are going to be more narrow, and it might not be affecting as many industries as previously expected. So that is what is coming out from reports thus far, and that's also based off some things that President Trump has said. There's news that Russia and the U.S. Delegations are preparing a joint statement very soon. And then there's all these other pieces of news involving Trump's announcements involving Hyundai. They could be making a lot more investments into the US. And then there's, all these other pieces of news. But I'm going to talk about all of these guys. Let me just read the transcripts I have. It's going to go over everything. So let me just pull this up on my phone real quick. So I have all of Trump's transcripts. I'm going to read what Donald Trump has been saying. It's very important. So President Trump said, "I suspect investment from tariffs and election results. Money is pouring into the US. We want to keep it that way." So he's very optimistic so far. Then President Trump said that Hyundai is going to be investing more money into the US. Let's make that very clear that the tariffs are working. Hyundai will not have to pay any tariffs by investing in the US. The Hyundai plant will produce more than 2.7 million metric tons of steel a year, according to President Trump. Then he said that Hyundai is going to be increasing auto manufacturing into Georgia too and Louisiana. And we're looking for a $21 billion investment in the next 4 years. Even the CEO of Hyundai did say the same thing. So $21 billion is going to be invested in the next 4 years. And they're also announcing a $5.8 billion steel plant in Louisiana and then also parts of Georgia. That's going to be creating 1,500 jobs, according to what reports suggest. President Trump then said that I may give a lot of countries breaks on tariffs. So now Trump is not saying let's double tariffs or this or that. Now he's saying that he's willing to give countries breaks on tariffs. So it's actually a very, very big change in his tonality compared to before. He has a different tone right now, and that's part of why the market is kind of like responding like this. So he's saying he wants to give breaks on tariffs. Then Trump said, I will announce additional tariffs over the next couple of days on autos and lumber, not to mention chips. I will be announcing additional tariffs soon. That's what President Trump said. Let's double check this. Let's keep going. Then Trump said that I will probably announce automotive tariffs over the next couple of days. Tariffs for doing business with Venezuela will be on top of existing tariffs. And then he said that not all tariffs will be included on April 2nd. We've made a very, very big deal on rare earths, and we're going to be signing a big deal very soon. That's what President Trump said. Then we had the U.S. Commerce Secretary Lutnick come out. He's saying that April 2nd is going to be a big day. It's going to be launching the External Revenue Service. So not the internal revenue, the External Revenue Service. So what is my view of this? Okay, so Trump could be announcing more tariffs even over the next couple of days. But the main date he keeps on hyping is April 2nd. So please keep that in mind. April 2nd is going to be very, very big. And then on top of that, Trump is now saying that he wants to give some countries breaks on tariffs. So he's kind of like, he has a different view of this. He wants to be more flexible compared to before. The market was panicking as, Donald Trump came off as being very, very strict about this, not wanting exemptions. Now he's saying there could be breaks coming. Now he's saying there could be more flexibility, even though he may announce more of these tariffs again in the next couple of days. April 2nd is going to be the official big date. So we'll see how things go. But as of right now, the flexibility and the fact that his tariff announcements may be more narrow than previously expected is part of why the market is running the way it is. Not to mention the fact that we've already priced in a lot of this fear, and then the market was due for some kind of bounce after dumping over 10%. And then it's also technical analysis. So all these different factors are playing a role in why the market's pushing like this. Okay, let me go over a couple more things. As far as the market is going, we have a very, very critical level at 565. If we do close above that on the weekly, that could actually cause a miniature gamma squeeze because in a nutshell, what's happening is you have these institutions hedging their shorts by going long, right? They're starting to buy up the market as the market starts to continue to close above some key levels every single day. The 0 day to expiration options also contribute for this. So when we get good closes above key levels such as 565, what happens is you have these institutions hedging. They start buying up shares, they start launching the market higher, and that is what's causing this miniature gamma squeeze. So that's part of what's happening right now. I would describe this as a gamma squeeze, which could develop into a short squeeze maybe. As of right now, it's looking that way, but we need more strong closes for confirmation, especially on the weekly time frame. But for now, market's looking good. So far, so good. Now, to add on to this, tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. We're almost at the end of March. We have some housing data coming out, new home sales at 10 o'clock a.m., and then the Richmond Fed manufacturing numbers come out at around 10 o'clock a.m. So get ready for some volatility once that data is out. Besides that, we have some earnings that are worth mentioning. We have GameStop announcing earnings tomorrow. You have Dollar Tree, Chewy, lots of retail, Lululemon, and the list goes on. Finally, the market used to be extremely fearful. Now it's just fearful. That's exactly what I predicted would happen. I did say this gauge should be starting to push this way. The market momentum is now going upwards. So this is showing us that we're approaching our 125 daily moving average on SPX. That's a sign that the market's building a little bit more strength. We'll see if this becomes more less fearful than before to go back to fear instead of extreme fear. The put to call option ratio is at extreme fear right now. This is starting to come down, though, as we're starting to see puts being closed. Like I said before, these strong closes incentivize these institutions to close their shorts and then hedge by going long. That's the big thing. The VIX is also dipping, losing its 50 daily moving average. That's a sign of weakness for the VIX, which tends to be a bullish sign for the markets. So everything's pointing the direction that we want to continue to go higher. We just need a little bit more confirmation on the chart. So with that being said, guys, that is it for the news part of the video. Now let's just focus on the charts. The first thing I want to mention is that when it comes to SPY, we have a possible cup and handle pattern. If we continue to make higher lows, we could continue to break out like this. And as long as we're above this yellow trend line, see this yellow trend line down here that's pointing upwards? As long as we ride this up, we're bullish. If we lose the trend line, I turn back to a little bit more bearish. That would be a sign of weakness. We're not doing that yet. We're riding the trend line up, so it's still technically bullish. Now, the daily is also showing us that we're very strong on SPY. Like when you look at the daily, we had a lot of volume on Friday and we got a nice gap up. Now, hypothetically, if we end up losing 568, I do expect us to fill the gap back down to 565. That's going to be a very, very key support. That also aligns with our daily 200 EMA. So make sure you pay attention to 568 just in case we do turn south. That's where we have this big gap to fill. But as long as we are above 568, we're still technically favoring the upwards direction. I want to see us break and hold 575 to remain bullish, but that's going to be a little bit tough to start things off. I think what's going to happen is we have the potential to push for 580, then eventually 584 near the 200 EMA up here. But what's going to likely happen is something like this. We're going to be fighting 575 and see if we can break that. So if we just shoot through this, if President Trump launches the market again, if 575 holds for at least 4 hours, this is favoring 580 plus. Of course, it's going to depend on some manufacturing numbers and consumer confidence at 10 a.m. tomorrow. That's going to be one factor to affect this. So we'll see what manufacturing numbers look like and what President Trump says tomorrow. But for now, if we break 575, we're looking for 580 as our target. If we're bearish if we get a rejection off 575, we can't hold that. We could retest near 570, and we'll have to see if that holds. If it doesn't hold, we have 568 to 570 as our main support zone. If that does not hold, so we do revisit this trend line towards like 565. That's like the more bearish case. If we get a rejection, we can't hold 570. Okay, so watch the bullish and bearish cases. Make sure you're ready for these levels. What do I think is going to happen? My prediction is we might see some kind of pullback move here because I do see 575 as a very tough resistance. So we might see a little, retest of like 572, 573, even like 570. But then I think we're going to get bought back up and continue to break to 580 plus and try to get back up to this 200 EMA. So anticipate a little bit of a dip to 570. Maybe, we could go closer to the trend line. I'm not really leaning in that direction. I think we might be retesting 568 to 570. Small little dip by a couple of points. We just want to cool off a bit on the RSI. And then we're going to be looking for a continuation for 580 most likely. That's what I'm favoring. Just to be safe, watch your levels, but that's what I'm seeing on the chart for now as the most likely move. Notice on the triple Q, we're getting a breakout. We had a bullish wedge here looking pretty strong, but we have very tough resistance between 490 and 492. Now, on the daily chart, we're bullish, looking quite good. I want to see us hold above 489 for confirmation to continue this pump, but the daily is looking quite good in my opinion. Now, looking at the daily chart, keep in mind that the 4 hour is also aligning with this, but we have to break 492 for confirmation. If we break 492 on the triple Q, this will easily start pushing for close to 500. We have this like gap over here, this imbalance. So 500 is going to be our next potential target if we do break and hold above 492. Now, if we do the opposite, just hypothetically, if we can't hold 485, if we get a rejection, and if 485 does not hold us, we could be dipping back down to where this trend line is right here, back down towards 480 or so, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. So watch that very, very closely and see if we kind of like bounce off that trend line as well. That's like the more bearish case. What do I think is going to happen? What's my prediction? Well, I think what's going to happen is we might retest our 50 EMA. 485 to 488 might be retested, a small little decline. Then we're going to be looking to see if we can break and hold above 492. If we hold this, maybe President Trump launches us, maybe we get some big news, and we could slowly try to get closer to 500 like this. So it might be a small decline before a bullish continuation. Unless 485 fails, then it could see a bigger decline, but I'm not really leaning in that direction. I think the chart looks strong on the daily, and we get a small dip, then we continue to pump. On on the Russell 2000, the IWM, we also have an inverse head and shoulders, which is looking quite good. We need to break and hold above 208. If that holds, we're looking for the 210s pretty easily, then 212. Now, keep in mind, there is a slight bearish divergence on this. I think it's very, very minor. So that might favor a move like this where we end up coming down here. Just see a slight little dip to like 206 to 205. And then as long as we hold 206, we're looking for a continuation for 212. If 206 fails us, we could dip to fill that gap near 204 before it tries to bounce. So it could be like a bigger decline first. But I don't really favor that. I think it's going to be like a small decline to 206 before it tries to bounce here. Still looks bullish. Nice accumulation. Nice inverse head and shoulders. So it looks bullish, but there could be a 1 to 2 point decline before we continue to pump. Looking at ES, we're doing a good job of trying to hold above our resistance, but we're going to be watching this. Just hypothetically, we need to lose 57.50 to turn back to bearish. We're not even close to that. And the chart looks bullish. It's favoring. It wants to go back up towards the 58.50s and eventually the 200 EMA at 58.74. So my prediction is there could be a retest right here at like 57.70 to 57.80 right down there. Then we might be looking for an attempt to slowly climb back up and push up for like the 58.80s, a move like this. As long as you don't lose 57.50, there could be a small decline to retest 5800, if not a little bit below that before it tries to bounce. But I do think we're looking for the 50 plus area back up towards our 200 EMA. That also aligns with a nice accumulation right here back up to this imbalance. So I think there's a good chance we try to get back up there, at least for now. That's what I'm leaning towards on ES, as long as 57.50 does not break. Notice that right now NQ is doing a good job at holding up. We're at some tough resistance near 20,400. I would like to see us hold above that to really continue. Now, if we see a small decline here, we could retest 20,215. If that holds, we're looking for bullish continuations towards the 20,500s back up. I also think that this 200 EMA is going to trend this way, and we're eventually going to catch up to it. So I do think we're going to be testing that very soon. If we hypothetically lose 20,100, we could dip to fill that gap. But as long as that doesn't happen, we could still see a nice accumulation and continue to push. So we'll see how it goes. But overall, we're still looking quite bullish. So just keep that in mind. So that's going to be very, very key. So keep that in mind, guys. That's going to be key for the way we end up moving. And I think there's a good chance we try to continue to hold support and just pump even more. For Bitcoin, we're making higher lows right now. If we continue to do this, we could continue to push for like the 90,000 area. If we lose 85,000, we could turn back down. But my guts tells me once again, we could be retesting our 200 EMA around 86,000 before it just continues to ride this trend line for that 90,000 mark. Looks pretty good, but I want to see it hold this trend line just for confirmation. So far, so good by Bitcoin. I'm bullish on Nvda. I think this is going to help the QQQ. Why is that? Because we're trying to get a bullish break right here. As long as we don't lose like 120 and 117, we're bullish, right? We're trying to make higher lows. Let's ignore everything. Just look at this. Inverse head and shoulders. We had this low down here at 104. We bounced, made a higher low. We're making higher lows here, so it's bullish. Everything is a little bit more bullish. So if we get some kind of retest of like 118 to 120, it's going to be fine. But then I think we eventually run for like this 125 target. That's going to be our 200 EMA up here. I think we try to push like this on Nvidia, if not go higher. That's what I'm leaning towards. So long as we don't lose 115, we're technically more bullish. And I think that we see a small dip tomorrow morning to retest like 118 or so before it tries to bounce. And then we're going to be looking for 125 as our target. Nvidia is going to help the QQQ to some extent. What else is helping the triple Q is Tesla. It's a monster, up 12% for the day due to many different things. Firstly, we're getting some good ratings. Secondly, we're seeing the FBI protecting Tesla. There's this news right over here. Let me just show you this. The FBI has created a task force to investigate and apprehend individuals behind vandalism against Tesla. So keep that in mind. Good news has come out, and much of the bad news has already been priced in. And then President Trump's tariffs, they do affect Tesla to a large extent. So that's the reason why the tariff news is helping Tesla. So it's bullish, right? And when you're up this much in a single day, you typically don't just dump the next day that hard. It depends on if you can hold above 280. If we get a small decline, completely normal before it continues to rally back up for 300. I'm looking for a move like this, depending on if we could hold 280 or not. But overall, could be looking for 300 as a potential target. For Apple, I want to see us hold above 220. If that's the case, we're looking for 226. If we lose 217, we're looking for a dip back down. My guts tells me we have a higher low, or a bullish divergence here, and this is favoring the 225s like this. So it's looking pretty good. I like the setup, and I think we're doing a great job. For Netflix, we're quite bullish. We're technically trying to ride this trend line upwards. I had this drawn out since yesterday. I do want to adjust it just a little bit, but we're slowly trying to push up for that 1,000 target. So I think it's doing a good job. As long as Netflix does not lose 945, it is favoring that it wants to ride this trend line slowly, push for 990 to 1,000. I think there's a good chance we achieve that. Excuse me. So far we're doing a good job. For MSTR, we look bullish as long as we don't lose 323 to fill this gap down here. We're favoring a move back up to about the 345s. For Celsius, we look bullish as long as we don't end up losing like 32.5. I think this is favoring 35. We're very close to 35. This is going to be a tough resistance at like 35.5. So maybe it goes a little bit higher where this wick is. And we'll see if we get a pullback from there or not. But I do see the low 35s to be tested, and we'll see how it reacts. For Supermicro, I did expect this to dip a little bit to retest the trend line. I said we should be looking for a bounce. So if it has to bounce, it needs to do that very, very soon. Might touch this trend line, then just continue to slowly uptrend for like 44 plus. Looks good. If we lose the trend line, though, it's going to be a bad sign. We could be dipping for like 38 or below. As long as we hold it, we're looking for the 40s, and it looks quite good. For Palantir, we're forming an inverse head and shoulders. Looks quite good. If we end up losing support and dip to about 91, it's not going to be a good sign. But I'm favoring 100 on Palantir. I think it wants to go for this. This is an accumulation. Inverse head and shoulders. EMAs are pointing upwards. We held our EMAs, and we're holding the trend line. All looking more bullish, favoring 100 as our target. For Rivian, we look pretty good. I want to see this hold. So my prediction on Rivian was that this would likely remain bullish. I said to look and see if we get a rejection before it continues to pump. We did not get a rejection. We actually just pumped straight up. We did expect 12.5 as my target. I think it's very close to that. As long as 12 holds, 12.5 is coming. If 12 does not hold, though, we could be retesting like 11.69. Looks bullish nonetheless. SoFi is bullish. Look for a test of 13.84. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially the 14s. If we end up losing support around 13.5, we could be turning back down towards 12.95. We're making higher lows on SoFi. We could be retesting like 13.25 before it tries to bounce. I'm favoring higher levels, like 13.84 than the 14s. So I think there's a good chance we try to push for those levels, especially if we get like a dip like this and push for 14. We look good. Pretty bullish so far by SoFi. Um, AMD looks good. We did expect upside. It actually exceeded my expectation of like the 110s. It actually went up to 113. So it looks like it wants to go for 116. As long as we don't lose like 110, we're favoring 116 as a potential target. ARM is looking good. As long as we don't end up losing like 121, we're favoring 127. So it looks pretty good here. Could be pushing for higher levels. For Coinbase, we look bullish. We're trying to make higher lows. If we end up losing 195.8, we could be dipping more. But if we continue to push, we're looking for that gap fill. So lose 195, we dipped to about 190. If we hold above 200, we're favoring a push for like 212. So it could go either way still because of the two gaps, but it's favoring that it wants to push this upwards gap a little bit more. So make sure you guys are open-minded for that. Amazon looks good, right? We had this range on Amazon, and now we're trying to push up to the next resistance up here around this 204 area. If it breaks past 204.5, we're looking for essentially 208. If we end up losing 200, we're looking for 198 as our next support down here. This is forming like a triple bottom, looks pretty good. I think that this is favoring a push for 208. We're at resistance right here near 204, so it might retest 200, then bounce for 208. Looks good so far. Meta, as long as we don't lose 609 to start dipping to fill this gap, we're favoring a pushback up for like the 630s. So it might test 609 and bounce for essentially 625. For Microsoft, we could be dipping back down towards 398 before it tries to bounce. Looks good so far, so we have a nice accumulation. I could be looking for an attempt for 398. For Google, as long as we hold 168, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 173. If we lose 166, we could turn back down, but I think this is looking bullish as we have an inverse head and shoulders, and we're favoring a push for 172. Looks good, but I just don't want to see this essentially lose support here, so I think we could be looking for 172. Oh, and by the way, about Microsoft, looks pretty decent. Might retest 190 or so before it tries to bounce. Looks pretty good with this accumulation, but like I said before, Microsoft is a little bit weaker than Google. GameStop is bullish as we predicted. As long as we don't lose 25.42, we're favoring a push back up towards 27. So looks pretty good. AMC inverse head and shoulders like pattern could slowly push for 3.2. DJT looks bullish. So long as we don't lose 22, we're favoring a push for 23.5. The VIX is weak here, making lower highs and lower lows. This may continue to decline back down towards like the 16s. It's weak, which is bullish for the markets. The 10 years looking bullish. If we break past 4.36, we're looking for an attempt to fill this gap. But it's not really affecting the market as much. I do think that ultimately there's like a head and shoulders here, and we will see these levels eventually, dip. So I think that despite the small push on this will eventually dip. For the dollar, it's a little bullish, but it's not really affecting the market as much. So don't really worry about this. So it's not affecting us, even though it is a little bit more bullish. So what's my view of the markets? I think that there's more upside to come, but we're at a tough resistance here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a small pullback by like a couple of points before it tries to continue to launch higher. And the overall trend is more bullish. So long as SPY does not lose this trend line, we're looking good. So a small decline like this would be completely normal towards like 568 to 570 before it tries to push for the 580s. We need to hold above 575 for confirmation to continue higher. It's going to be a tough resistance, but overall, there is potential for us to break it later on. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a good rest of your day. I'll be back with another video tomorrow morning before market open. Until then, take care, guys. Sleep well. Have a good rest of your day, and just get ready for another trading day for tomorrow. Thank you for listening. The bulls are looking stronger. I'll see you guys very soon, and peace out.